Hello everyone and welcome back to Replay Works and welcome to the second revision for the blue-green Char aggro deck, also known as the 1 Year War High Maneuver deck. So, this is the second build, and just a quick disclaimer, I did not get to play this personally in the locals recently. I had my playtest partner George play it instead, and he ended up going 4-1 with it, only losing in the final round, which we did record and will be up on the channel. But before we get into the changes for the deck and what my thoughts are on this current revision, if you are not subscribed to the channel and you are enjoying the content so far, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out. It lets me know that this type of content is what people are enjoying. And if there's any changes, just leave a comment as well. I always appreciate reading those, right? So, without further ado, the second revision for this deck. So there's a couple of key cards that got changed out. As you see, we're no longer playing anything higher than level 4, so no more Wing Gundam. We actually reduced Char's Gelgoog, and that's because we want to go for a more of a low-end aggro style. This is to kind of combat the ever-growing trend of how the meta is changing into low-cost aggro rush units, right? In order to kind of counteract that in this deck, I decided to go with using cards like the regular Zaku 1, the regular Zaku 2, and Gun Cannon as well. So those cards all got added in just because it's kind of how I see the meta changing, where it's like if they're going to be fast, then you got to be fast as well. We're not in a slower meta anymore. There's no more blue-white blockers as often as when the game first came out. We're starting to see that shift happen. And it's only been 3 weeks, which is pretty interesting from a gameplay standpoint, since normally first sets kind of have a little bit of a stale meta, but this has been pretty exciting. Anyway, for this deck, we kept the core concept the same, right? We have the Chars, we have the Amuro, we have a bunch of links that work with the Amuro and the Chars, right? So the cards that stay the same, we got the Chars Zaku 2, we got the Chars right here, so it's 4, 4, and 4. Char's Gelgoog, like I mentioned, we dropped it down to 3. That's mainly because I noticed that when I was playing the deck, I would see multiple copies float in my hand. And you only really need to use one to close out the game, because it's such a high cost card. It requires you having another Zeon U in your hand. It requires having Char having been destroyed previously. And realistically, if you're using up, let's say you're on turn 5 or turn 6, you're using up more than half your resources for this card. You don't really want to see more than 2 back-to-back because you can't really multiplayer that turn. The only time you can multiplayer is when you're at level 8, which is really hard because at that point, the deck you should have died by then, in all honesty. So, reducing it down, again, we're not in a slower meta, we have to be a little bit faster, and we need to allocate that space somewhere else, right? So those are the Char package, I'd say. And what we did keep, we kept the regular Zaku 2 from the star deck. There's always going to be 4 of these, I think, in any of these decks, just because it's such a good card to play. And the new additions, I mentioned we have Zaku 1, we have Zaku 2, the vanillas, the 1-2, and the 2-2. And then we also have Dop. Dop is, I'm a big fan of Dop because you can use it early game to kind of control what your next draw is going to be. You can say okay, well, if it's a vanilla that you're missing, right? Because on turn 2, you want to be able to play 2 units. You're able to use the Dop to say, well, I'm going to keep it on top. Or the opposite. Let's say you have too many. Let's say you have a Dop, Zaku 1, and Zaku 2, or any combination between these 3 in your hand. You can say that, well, there's another one coming up. I don't want it. I just put it at the bottom, right? So I really like Dop in the sense that it lets you do that immediately from the game start. And there's always going to be those weird turns when you have an extra resource. So being able to play that Dop as that last resource, again, allows you to control what your next turn is going to be. And if you keep it on top, especially if it's like a pilot, that's huge for you to know going into next turn that you can essentially set up for a link turn, right? So those are the new Zeon units, right? Then we have some of the new white-based units. We have 3 gun tank and we have 3 gun cannons. These ones are new to the decks. I've really liked the gun tank plays, because not only does it just ping damage, if you leave it on the field, it sets up for a sneak attack with the G fighter later on, where you give it high maneuver and it can be just an unblockable 1 damage ping to shield. So I really like having that here. That's a really niche play, to be honest, because we're starting to move away from having a lot of blockers on the field anyway. But the fact that he can still deal 1 damage, it's like when your opponent's 2/2s attack your DOP or something, right? Or even like against another aggro deck, right? If they have a 3/2, you can use the DOP to trade up essentially, and then use the gun tank to finish it off. So I like having that extra ping just to be able to clean up whenever my opponent decides to attack my field instead of my shield. I'm okay with that, since most of these guys aren't really supposed to be living anyway. And then the gun cannon here pairs well with Amuro. Amuro, I believe this is the first time I pushed him up to 4 copies of a card, because now he has access to 8 link units with these 3 right here. So decided to push him up just because he's that much better. Also because we don't have the Hero Yui anymore, we don't have Makuve, so we have a little bit extra slots in the pilot zones where we can play 8 pilots, right? So with the gun cannon, you can rest 2 things, and essentially what I like to use it for, and what I've seen it used for when George was playing, was that in the aggro mirror, this actually helps you beat that mirror, because there's going to be a point in the game when they're going to put down 2 units on the same turn, and you're going to want to like try to get rid of those units before they start swinging at you. Because I believe that in the aggro mirror, it can't just be Unga Bunga swing at face, and then one of them is whoever swings harder loses. There's the way to beat the aggro mirror is to actually play as you're controlling, as a control deck, right? And gun cannon lets you do that in this type of deck, where you can use a gun cannon with Amuro to essentially force 2 things to rest down, and then your guys, you can take advantage of that with, like, the 2/2 could swing at their 1/1s or their 2/1s, or 1/2s rather. Gun cannon will become a 4/4, right? So if they left like a Char Zaku without it being paired or linked with Char, then you can go ahead and kill that. You get repair 1. So you get to build back a lot of momentum just by using that gun cannon. So I like having this card here. It does come in handy since you can just put it down as like I guess a Trojan horse, right? Since if you don't have the links for like the Char Zaku 2 that gets the token, I'd rather just put down the gun cannon, just because at any point if you do link it with Amuro, you get that 1 paired ability, right? And I'd rather do that than have a Zaku 2 die and not get a token, right? This one I don't care. This one's fine. He's meant to just get popped on the field, but seldom he does get destroyed that fast. And then we have the 3 ST Gundams, right? Those ones I think are still necessary. It's kind of 50-50. I always go back and forth on whether it's not I like in the deck, because there are times when I need to hit 6 AP, and that's when he comes in really handy. But other times he's a high cost unit. He costs 3, right? Even if you do the link turn with Amuro, theoretically you could have played 2 or 3 units in that stead, right? So it really depends on like what happens on the board field. But in this case, just having him in the deck is better than not having him. Okay, and the last 2 cards that I haven't talked about yet. Let's talk about Siege Ploy. Anyone who's watched the replay reviews knows that I love this card a lot. I decided to just say I'm gonna max it out. I'll put 4 in the deck and go with that to like either try to push for game or try to not lose or not die as fast. So 4 is quite a lot, I admit. I can see why decks only play 2. Having experienced it firsthand and witnessing it firsthand, I think 2 is great. 4 is a lot in this type. Even like I would probably just drop it down to 3, to be honest. And then the last card, our base. I'm not playing Corsica base anymore. I'm not playing Famels, nothing like that. I'm playing St. Gabriel Institute, and this card, it's simultaneously really good, but also terrible if you end up like drawing it back to back. What I mean by this is that if this card is hit from your shield and you get the burst effect, you are so ahead, because not only do you get the extra card from the burst, you also get to check the top 2 and potentially have like, there's probably a dead card on top. You just put it on the bottom, and then you leave the card that you actually want on top, so you get to control your draw. And that's on your opponent's turn, so you know what you're drawing into your next turn, which is fantastic. Hard playing it is a bit tougher, only because you're using up 2 resources when that could have been a Char Zaku or a gun cannon, for example. And it's like they're in a pinch when if you need to dig, right? If you need to dig for a specific pilot, but the thing is that 1 card will always go on top, right? So I've seen it work in both cases, where when I play the deck for a little bit, I'm like, oh, I drew 2 in a back-to-back, and I was like, oh, this card is awful. But when I seen George play it and it's in the shield, it's bursted, I'm like, oh, this card's amazing. So, and that's only with playing 2. I can't imagine trying to play 4 of these things. But yeah, I wanted to give it a shot. In tournament, it worked out very well. In casual testing, I was like, okay, it's fine, not too fantastic, but I do see the merit in playing this card, right? Because it's one of the few bases in the game that lets you get the effect when it's bursted from shield. So I do like that effect as well. Yeah, since like Famel and Corsica base, those two, they have to be on your turn to get the tokens, right? And those are essentially in lieu of playing a unit, right? And in a sense, it's kind of the same thing, but again, we're trying to just dig for pieces to try to go for game, because we're aiming for opening with trying to have like a DOP and then like 2 level 2s that are 1-drops in your hands. That way you can go DOP turn 1, 2 cards turn 2s. This way you have 3 units by the end of your level 2 turn. If you go second, even better. You can just have any of these guys and be fine. This Zaku 2 specifically would be amazing. And then from there, the optimal turn, you can go Zaku 2 into Char Zaku 2, this one specifically, just to like have guys in the field, or you can play more Zakus, right? So that sense of this deck is meant to hit the ground hard, just like any other of the Federation or the Xeon aggro decks. You go 3 units turn 2, and then from there, the cleanup is when your opponent's at 2 shields, start to poke them down to 1, and then use the link units to end the game. That's always been the principle for whenever I built these decks. That's why turn 6 is very important, because that's the turn when you can potentially play 2 link units, depending on what you have. But overall, I think this deck performed well. However, I will say this in the caveat, is that I believe that this deck is vastly outmatched by the Federation deck. Having seen it, Federation deck in action, like a pure blue deck, this deck does run into some issues where if it doesn't get the optimal setup, if it doesn't get those explosive turn 3, turn 4 plays where you just link Char and then start swinging for the fence, the deck runs into an issue where you're essentially playing almost a high roll. I don't want to say it's a complete high roll, but you're really banking on seeing Char, seeing Amuro, getting your link units on time at the precise moment when you need to like start pushing for more damage. And then of course, you need to hope that your opponent doesn't have the specific counter cards for that. So it's a really tough meta right now. I mean, I'm happy with revision 2. I'll probably just tweak a few cards here and there, so I wouldn't really call that revision 3. I only do that when I like vastly change out like, I don't know, like 25% of the cards in the deck and I play it a different way. In this case, tweaking the ratios, I'm okay keeping this as it is for now until I see any changes in the meta, and then would have to kind of figure out what I want to do from there. But for the Char build, I think trying to get it as low to the ground as possible has worked out. And yeah, honestly, it's been a fun deck. It's been a fun deck project the past since launch. Just work with what you have, or what I have, without having any of like the higher end cards, except for Char's Gelgoog and the SD Gundam. The SD Gundams are like, I don't know, they're a ridiculous price right now, but I think they're actually gonna be worth more than Char's Gelgoog. Anyway, that's like musings on my end. But trying to work with what you have, trying to work with what like the cheaper cards are. It's been great, and I'm definitely excited to keep working through more deck profiles on the channel, even if it's not this deck. I want to showcase off some like some of my deck building logic or stuff like that, right? But that's it for this one. If anything, again, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Really means a lot to me. Leave a like and comment down below. And if you want to challenge me, give me something that like crazy to try to build, and I'll try to build that to best ability. But yeah, if anything, I will see you in the next one.